This week on ICN, the stories you should have heard, but didn't. Despite Chicago's ban, gun violence erupts over the weekend. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis. Now add solar storms to the potential disaster list. Wikileaks founder comes out of hiding to say he does not live in fear. Those stories and more next on Informed Citizen News. Hello and welcome to ICN, Informed Citizen News, the week of June 20th, 2010. Before we jump into the news, we wanted to update you on ICN's plans for 2010. This year, we're going to launch a website to reduce our dependence on YouTube and to provide our viewers with additional news services. Although we have made progress, it is proceeding slower than we had hoped. In order to get the website launched, we're going to shift to a bi-weekly broadcast for the next 3 months. This will allow our team to finish the website and launch new services. Our goal is to keep the service free and widely available to the public. There will be more information available as we move closer to the launch of our website. Thank you for your support, and now for the news. Last weekend, in one of the most violent cities in the world, 10 people were shot and killed, while another 54 were wounded by gunfire. If you were thinking Baghdad, Kandahar, or even Mexico City, you'd be wrong. The city was Chicago, Illinois. The irony to this tragic weekend is that handguns are illegal in Chicago, and like other cities with a ban on legally owned firearms, it is extremely violent. Chicago prevents law-abiding citizens from protecting themselves. As criminals tend to not follow the law, they are the only private citizens roaming the city streets with guns. The criminals know this fact and can invade homes, mug people, and rob businesses without worry of being confronted by a legally armed citizen. In Chicago, the criminals just have to make sure they wrap up their crime and leave the scene before the police arrive. In one 48-hour period, 10 dead and 54 wounded in Chicago. A new government report forecasts increased solar storm activity over the next few years. Solar storms have been known to damage power grids and communications on a regional and global level. The Earth previously experienced significant solar storms in 1859 and 1921. On September 1st and 2nd of 1859, the largest recorded geomagnetic storm occurred, causing the failure of telegraph systems all over Europe and North America. This type of solar storm is often referred to as a Carrington event. If the same storm happened today, then half the Earth facing the sun would lose its power grid indefinitely. Our society has a thin veil of civility. Turn off the power grid for more than a few days, and police will stop responding, and people can turn to barbarism overnight. Witness Katrina, Haiti, and other disasters in recent decades. It may be that the Earth will not experience a catastrophic solar storm for another 100 years, or it could happen in the coming decade. A Carrington event is just another type of disaster like earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, floods, and pandemics that can jeopardize you and your family's health and safety. ICN continues to advise that you have enough food, water, and other supplies that enable you to remain in your home for at least 30 days should the need arise. It may mean the difference between being a victim or a survivor. The Supreme Court recently denied a petition to review an appeals case about a Canadian and Syrian citizen who was abducted by the U.S. government and rendered to Syria for interrogation in 2002. The man, Maher Arar, was detained and tortured for 10 months without charge and ultimately released. Arar sued the Canadian and U.S. governments for what was done to him, and last November, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the dismissal of his lawsuit on the grounds that courts have no right to interfere in these decisions of the executive branch. The Canadians who cooperated with the U.S. in Arar's abduction conducted a sweeping investigation of what happened, and publicly issued a scathing report that faulted Canada and the United States for his deportation to Syria, where he was imprisoned and tortured. The report made clear he had done absolutely nothing wrong. Then, Canada's Prime Minister personally and publicly apologized to Arar and announced that Canada would compensate him with a payment of $8.5 million. During the original U.S. court case and subsequent appeals, both the Bush and Obama administrations claimed state secrets and requested dismissal of the case. The U.S. has never apologized nor admitted any wrongdoing in the Arar case. According to inside government sources, the United States has discovered nearly $1 trillion in untapped mineral deposits in Afghanistan. Deposits including huge veins of iron, copper, cobalt, gold, and critical industrial metals like lithium are so big and include so many minerals that are essential to modern industry, Afghanistan could eventually be transformed into one of the most important mining centers in the world. United States officials said the biggest mineral deposits discovered so far are iron and copper, and the quantities are large enough to make Afghanistan a leading producer of both. Since Afghanistan has no history or culture of mining, rights to develop mines would be sold or leased out to the highest bidder. Geologists are now scouring some of the most remote stretches of Afghanistan to complete the technical studies necessary before the international bidding process begins. Corruption and Afghani government officials have gone hand in hand throughout the years. Now add in $1 trillion in natural resources, and the mix will continue to make the region highly volatile. Julian Assange, founder of Wikileaks, recently came out of hiding to claim that he does not fear for his safety, but he is still on permanent alert. Intelligence analyst Bradley Manning was detained by the U.S. military after he bragged that he had sent 260,000 incendiary U.S. State Department cables on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan to Wikileaks. When news broke that Manning was whisked away to a secret military jail in Kuwait, Assange went underground figuring he was a Pentagon target. Wikileaks declined to confirm that it had received anything from Manning, but they did recently release a controversial video that showed the U.S. Army shooting what was claimed to be insurgents, but in reality turned out to be civilians and journalists in Iraq. The communications that Manning is alleged to have leaked is assumed to be of highly sensitive nature, as the Pentagon has been actively searching for the WikiLeaks founder in an effort to stop these communications from reaching the public. Assange freely admits he spends most of his time in Sweden and Iceland, where laws are most friendly to whistleblowers. Iceland is planning to become the offshore haven for journalists and leakers, setting up server farms that store uploaded sensitive information and making it available to the public. Affected countries will have little or no recourse to remove or confiscate the data in question once posted. The proposal, known as the Icelandic Modern Media Initiative, requires changes to Icelandic law to strengthen journalistic source protection, freedom of speech, and government transparency. WikiLeaks was heavily involved in drafting and promoting the Icelandic package, and they've proven remarkably immune to legal prosecution in their short history. Journalists and leakers could gain some measure of legal protection for anonymous sources if all communications were routed through Iceland after the law goes into effect. One of the themes in this broadcast is the control of information. In order to mitigate damage to their reputation over the oil disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, BP has purchased sponsored links at the top of internet search engines Google and Yahoo. The words oil spill, BP oil spill, Deepwater Horizon, and oil spill response are among several other related search terms that all lead to the BP corporate website for news and information on the oil spill. BP had not been forthcoming with information related to the initial disaster and amount of oil that was leaking in the ocean. The purchase of internet search terms from Google and Yahoo show a continuing effort to aggressively control information about the disaster in the Gulf. Thanks for joining us this week, and remember, join us again in 2 weeks for another news update. From all of us at Informed Citizen News, see you next time.